Okay, welcome. We're going to dive into another round of coffee and donuts. If everyone can hear me all right, someone just give me a message in the chat and let's kick this off. So, as always, the way this will work, let me minimize that, is I have some pre-submitted questions for right now I'll get to and answer those, as well as then we'll open it up for everyone here on the live call with us. And any questions you want, you can either start putting them in the chat now, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you once we're ready. Let's do this. All right. First question. Can you explain how I can bring up therapy in my psych evaluation? So, right off the bat, I find this, I'm going to give you a personal aspect here. I find this counterintuitive because you think going to therapy would be a good thing, right? That, you're dealing with a psychologist and you're working on your mental health and your mental toughness, and they would see it as such. No, they see it the other direction, right? They see it as a weakness, so to say. So it's going to really come down to what happens and what you say you disclose in your therapy sessions. And that is usually a very common question that they ask during your psych evaluation. They'll ask, hey, have you ever sought treatment or have you ever dealt with a mental health professional? And you'll mark yes. They'll say, okay, walk me through this. I see a therapist. Okay, what do you see your therapist for? And if you say something along the lines of, just typical, mental health and mental growth and things like that, that's good. That's the way you want to go. But then they're probably going to ask you, hey, what's some things you guys are discussing? Or I've even seen it, hey, we need letters from your therapist stating what you guys discuss and them to fill out XYZ form. So if you do have a mental health professional that you work with, a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, um, it's one of those tread lightly. Now, for this particular question, just bringing it up is the easy part, right? You can just say, "Oh yeah, I seek mental, or I work with therapy." I won't even say mental health if it's just a therapist, where you say, "Hell yeah, I see a therapist, and I just routinely see them just for mental maintenance." That's how I would bring it up, and hopefully that's enough to go over at that point in time. Unlikely though. The big thing would be, what have you discussed? What do you use them for? Why do you feel you need them? And yeah, I find it counterintuitive that a mental health professional is asking you why you use another mental health professional, but they do. It's an unfortunate aspect. The biggest thing here for this particular question would be along the lines of, what else are they going to ask, and how can you close those loops so that they don't deep dive and misinterpret, your eligibility based on your treatment or based on your mental health uh, discussions with your therapist or any other mental health provider. It is counterintuitive. I dislike it for that exact reason, that you have one mental health professional saying, hey, because you see another mental health professional, it's it's a bad day. But it is what it is, and you got to kind of deal with it. So each individual aspect would have to be discussed, but just bringing it up is easy. I would just stay away from anything that might bring a negative connotation to you. All right. Next question. What should I do in preparation before applying for a law enforcement job? So, if you've already applied, you should still do this. In your, for the members in your online course, you have that whole preparation section, which we're adding. We have a whole block of things to add to that. But in the most part, there should not be a concern about anything. If you're, for the members here, if you're if you're in or you have the online course, you should definitely be filling out the PHS, right? The police history questionnaire, police history statement, personal history statement, doesn't matter, whatever you want to call it. You should fill that out as soon as possible and make the mistakes on the sample one before you make the mistakes on a real one that is going to be out there for all departments to see for the rest of your career. I would say, if I was going to break this down just for the most random person, I would get a copy of my credit report. I would get a copy of any transcripts, whether that's high school, college, whatever you have. Official copies, by the way. They can't be opened and unsealed. They have to be sealed. I'd probably get multiple copies. So credit report, transcripts, any criminal reports or anything like that. If I've ever gotten a speeding ticket or anything, I'd try to get any court documents or anything like that so I could articulate. And the reason why is because you can just say, hey, I received a speeding ticket for this from XYZ police department. But then that officer might have stopped you, said, hey, I stopped so and so for erratic lane change and speeding. I conducted SFSTs, which is standard field sobriety tests for an intoxicated driver. I believe the individual blew zeros on the alcohol measuring device. However, I still believe the individual may have been inebriated by some type of other substance, but I'm not a DRE, therefore I could not proceed further. If it said all that, I'm not saying it will, but if it said all that and you just said, oh, I received a speeding ticket, but you didn't know it said all that in there, you would be ill prepared for when they come back to say, hey, have you ever had any contact with law enforcement? Yeah, I've had a speeding ticket on this day. Okay. With that interaction with ABC Police Department, did anything else occur? If you're not prepared to discuss it, you have no idea what to say. Whereas if you were prepared and you say, yeah, they conducted standard field sobriety tests on me. They thought I was intoxicated. However, I wasn't. Well, have you ever driven while intoxicated under a substance besides alcohol? No, no, I've never done that with alcohol or with any other substance either. Well, this police report says that there was suspicion of it. I mean, you wouldn't say this, but it's a good thing suspicion isn't a crime because that can just any person can say that. So for you being able to just kind of articulate that and say, oh, well, I have no idea why the officer wrote that. Once again, he let me go and said, just gave me a ticket for speeding. And that was, 10 years ago. It's easy to articulate. On top of that, you might not even remember that you had SFSTs done on you 10 years ago. So at least you want to get blindsided and say, oh, yes, I do recall that. Yeah, they ran standard field sobriety tests on me, or they ran tests on me. I blew in a alcohol measuring device. It came back as zeros as I was not intoxicated whatsoever. And I went home and they issued me a speeding ticket. So much easier to say it that way than have to deal with it kind of unknowingly. So getting criminal report as well would be another one. And then it depends, if you have military, you'd want to get all your military files on record. If you have anything like the previous question where you have a mental health professional that you work with, you'd want to get a copy of that. You want possibly even get them to write a letter, right? If you did that. Letters of recommendation, if you can get them from anyone, right? But they'd have to be serious letters of note, not just from your professors and things like that. It would have to be, from a chief somewhere or some, a congressman. Otherwise, they're not really letters of recommendation. They're not going to carry really any significant weight to move you along in the process. And yeah. That's that's where I would start. There's much more to it, but that's where I would definitely start. Parth, give me 1 second. I'll be right there. All right. Next question. Next one is, my greatest weakness is I hold myself to a very high standard. If I don't meet the standard I set for myself, I feel like I'm failing, whether I am exceeding others' standards or not. For anyone who has been in this program long enough, you all know I hate that. Absolutely hate that. That is trying to sell a positive as a negative. That is what they teach you in all these communication classes in college. And that's the quickest way to make me or some other hiring officials mad when we ask, hey, what's your greatest weakness? It's okay if you give me a weakness that might not directly correlate, but trying to sell a positive as a negative doesn't work, because ultimately you're, I hold myself to a very high standard, and yeah, that's not a weakness. All right, don't use it. Don't ever use anything like that. Oh, I'm too critical of myself. I like to take charge. No, don't sell a positive as a weakness. That I'm getting frustrated just thinking about it. Yes, that We hate that, right? It shows no actual in-depth self-reflection, and it's just completely what is brought out as a byproduct of what colleges were teaching for the longest time. And if anyone's ever thought that that sounded good, it doesn't. Hey, tell me about something that you struggle with, right? If I change the word and say not a weakness, but tell me something you struggle with, and then you put that in there. Oh, I hold myself to a high standards. Oh, really? You struggle with that? You that's something you struggle with? If I change the wording around, that only works if I actually ask you, what's your weakness or what's a weakness? If I change the word weakness for a synonym or something of equal value, it doesn't work. It just sounds like you're pretentious. Don't use it. Don't sell a positive as a negative. Actually pick something that takes some reflection. Me, specifically, my greatest weakness a long time ago when I first got into this, which was many years ago, was, I had a technology. I wasn't too fond of technology. But ultimately, I knew that's the way the world was going. So I took a lot of technology and computer classes. Now I'm fairly proficient at technology, even possibly a little bit above average. However, another extension of that is cyber crimes, right? That's not a proficiency of mine. And when I mean specifically about cyber crimes, to niche it down even further, I mean computer hacking, right? If you put someone in front of me and said, hey, this computer is getting hacked, stop it, I'm not your guy. I can't do it, right? That's a weakness. That's my weakness. If you ask me, hey, what's one of your greatest weakness? When it comes to the cybercrime, specifically hacking and viruses and things like that, I'm not too competent on that stuff. I'm learning, I'm taking classes in it. However, at this point in time, if you wanted me to be the one to stop someone from being able to do that or to code a computer, I would not be your guy. That's it. That's my weakness, right? It relates to law enforcement. It's me exposing myself. I'm not strong in this area. It is what it is. That's it. That's the things you got to consider. Don't sell positive as a negative. All right. Hey, before I let you go, I did want to ask real quick, if you enjoy this, know that we go in and we answer all the questions on YouTube. And then if you have any enjoyment from the podcast, from the audio podcast, no matter where you're watching it, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of the other platforms, please leave us a review and like and share it. That's how we get out there. And then that shows me that this is the content that you all want to see, and then it's actually being beneficial. So if you have a comment and you want to ask a quick question, you can ask it over on YouTube. We try to answer all of them for as long as we can, as well as any of the extra gifts that we have for you. But additionally, you can go on to our website. It's Armagan CT, so ARMOGANCT.com. And up there, we have live free trainings that we do as well occasionally. And you can keep checking there and see if that's something that you want to jump onto. I hope this all helps you. As I said before, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.